Hello, my name is Mae Whittick. Welcome to Her Conversations, Tools for the Awakening Woman. HER is an acronym for Higher Energetic Resonance. This is the optimal state to embody in order to attract her highest desires. Who is the awakening woman? She's a woman who's seeking a greater possibility in her reality and looking for solutions. She knows being awakened is not a lofty ideal but a necessity. If she can transform herself, she can change the world. Her conversations will introduce you to talented women who will speak to your spirituality, sensuality and soul. They share their stories and explain how they are in service to the world. So let their words in these conversations embolden and inspire you. This week's Her Conversations is not so much a conversation with anybody apart from me having a conversation with you. And the reason being is I wanted to try something different as one, I've passed the milestone of 1 year of Her Conversations, and I also want to be starting to do slightly different things in terms of the way that the podcast will take place. There'll still be lots of interviews with higher energetic resonance women and also more solo episodes like this, either from myself or from invited guests. So this is something I'm still working out, and you can probably hear in the background that I'm in some sort of public place. I'm actually in China, and I'm on a layover of just maybe an hour or so, got off an 11.5-hour flight from London. I'm here for another 4 or 5 hours before I then take a flight down to Bali. And I've decided that I'm going to be in Bali for the next 2 months. The reason being is the year 2018, as I've spoken to a lot of different people, has been very transformative for everyone, and it has meant that for a lot of us, things that we continue to do as a matter of routine, if it was no longer in line with who we were trying to become, it was going to be very difficult for us to continue with those things, and it would become very apparent that we needed to make changes, and if we didn't make changes, it would present itself in a way that we had no choice but to make the change. And I found that happening to myself on more than one occasion in 2018. Living situations, working situations got to the point where it was clear that I needed to make a big shift. And as with anything, if we get used to doing things in a certain way, even though we may have a certain amount of frustration and boredom and stuckness around it, making a change takes a lot of courage, takes a lot for us to actually go, do you know what, I'm going to do something different. But life also presents itself with taking matters into its own hands, especially if it feels that you need to learn something a little bit quicker than you may be prepared to do so. And you'll find that you have to just make the change, and that's how 2018 presented itself. By the end of it, I'd been through quite a lot emotionally and in terms of where I was, in terms of the work that I was doing, and I needed to make a change. And by the end of it, I'd decided that I needed to take some time out. I've lived in London for 20 years now, and there's a certain routine that I'd got into with myself that I needed to break the routine on that, and I wasn't sure how I was going to do that by going back into the same routine in itself. I'm not the biggest fan of winter, and we're coming up towards winter now as well, so what was a glorious heat wave has now become dark, cold, wet nights. Not necessarily my favourite time of year. So it had been on my mind anyway over the past year's Christmas, that I wanted to go away for Christmas. And I had said in just a very light-hearted way, and not actually had made any firm plans about it, that I wanted to go away, probably to Bali or Thailand. And when I got to the situation with my last living situation and working situation to an extent, I decided that instead of waiting until Christmas to go away, then I would just bring it forward a month and go for a little bit longer and go for 2 months, which is the maximum amount of time that I can go in any one stay. I'm looking forward to going to Bali because it has a lot of different groups of people that I'm really interested to meet up with. Obviously, there's a really big yoga and spirituality contingent there as well, and there are people that I know vaguely. One of them is Sequoia Henning, who was one of my guests earlier this year, and I met her the previous year in India when we were out there studying yoga together. So she'll be there, so I'll be able to connect with her. And also, I really have been fascinated with the digital nomad scene, and there's a great number of digital nomads. There's a really famous co-working space in Ubud where I'll be going to, but I want to be connected to. I want to kind of investigate it, and I do some work online. I would say up until this point it has represented maybe 40% of my income, and I want to change that, because one of the things that I would really like to increase is the amount of travel that I do. And having seen the way that the year has gone with her conversations and the feedback that I've got, I can see that people are enjoying it, and there are ways for it to grow. And one of the ways that I would like for it to grow is for it to grow internationally. So me going away is not just a matter of taking time out and connecting with the yoga scene and also with the digital nomad scene. It's also starting to promote her conversations on a wider platform in the flesh. Also, what I'd like to do is really deepen my own practice. I've been studying and practicing Kundalini yoga for a couple of years now, and I've just felt that over the past couple of months I've not given it enough focus. And if I'm able to actually really dig in and give it the focus that it deserves, then as a result I'll get even greater results, and I'll be able to feel more confident in what I'm talking about when I'm talking about Kundalini yoga, because I've deepened my practice and then I would have seen the results in my life. Some of the things that I like to ask my guests, I think it would be quite fun for me to answer them now. The first question I always like to ask is, HER is an acronym for higher energetic resonance, and knowing and finding out when people feel at their most HER. And for me, it has always been to do with creativity. Anytime that I'm creating anything new, music, writing, and HER conversations in itself, I do feel a sense of that expansion, of that higher energetic resonance. And going away is also going to give me an added opportunity to spend more time planning, and really fleshing out and adding to the content of the book that I've been dipping in and out of, Becoming Her. And that in itself is about how I discovered my own higher energetic resonance, and I'm really keen to get some more completion on that book as well, so that it can all become part and parcel of the her conversations and the higher energetic resonance family. Also, while I'm out there, I'll be able to meet other women who, and have more live conversations. So that's how I feel about that. Another thing that I ask is, what is the best piece of advice that a woman has ever given to you? And I would say, and I've said this before in an earlier episode, the best piece of advice I felt that I ever got given was a nickname that was given to me by my mom, which is Bloom. And there it is, Bloom. As a name, it's a really nice name, but also as a call to action, it's a really strong call to action. And I always think about that, and in the way that I'm living and doing my work, that's what I'm aiming to do, is to bloom. in terms of thinking about the women that represent higher energetic resonance to me, there are so many. Each of the guests that have kindly come and shared their time and shared their story and their work with me on Her Conversations fits under that bracket perfectly. These are the kind of women that represent higher energetic resonance. They're the ones that are answering the call within themselves. It's interesting when I meet these women how honoured I feel and how much more inspired I feel because of them, and how the collection of women together has inspired other women to want to be part of Her Conversations and bring in their stories and understand why it's necessary for there to be a collective space where women who are doing this amazing kind of work can be heard, and anyone who would come across her would understand the kind of people, the kind of women and the kind of stories that they're going to be hearing. And so all of those women represent higher energetic resonance to me. And of course, in a way, it's been interesting when I mentioned that I was going away. Some of the words that I heard quite a lot from other people were how brave I was and what a courageous thing it was to do, which I suppose if you look on it on one hand, it could be considered brave, but I don't feel that I'm doing anything courageous or out of the ordinary. I think I'm doing something that I have to do. I think me being brave would have been me trying to turn things around from a static point, i.e. not making any drastic moves or not doing something radically different and still trying to make a change from the way that things were. This just feels like the right thing to do, to get away, to meet new people, to focus on work. Granted, I'll be in a new country, I'll be in a beautiful environment, but it will also give me an opportunity to do a lot of deep work, and that's what I'm going for. So maybe brave, but highly necessary, and I'm interested to see who I'll meet and also what I'll become on the other side of this. And another question I like to know is favourite self-care rituals and practices of the ladies who appear on Higher Energetic Resonance Conversations, Her Conversations. For me, it's movement, and I really like to walk at the moment now. I felt there's been a lot of stagnant energy and stiffness and not as much flexibility and mobility in my body, and this is unusual to me as somebody who was always quite athletic and even competed as an athlete at points in time, to then start to feel that I don't have the flexibility or the movement or the reflex action that I used to have. And the consensus is usually to say, well, it's an age thing and that's the way that it goes, but I think it's just been a lack of care, taking a little bit of the eye off my own ball to an extent, and this is something that I need to get back on track. The Kundalini practices that I do, some of them can be extremely physical, and again, I'm looking forward to delving into that. That will be my self-care. The getting the practice back on board. My self-care will also be the amount of good food that I'm eating. I'm relatively okay, but then I do have a weakness for sugary things. So I'm looking forward to delving into that side of self-care as well. And that's kind of where I'm at with it. I just wanted it to be a short episode to try something new, and it would be really interesting to find out from you if you think this format works. If I do solo, if I do more solo formatted podcasts, what kind of things you would like to hear me talk about. I know a few things, so I can keep it quite interesting and entertaining, and I can also do research and so forth just to gen up a little bit more. So that's it from me in a airport in China, waiting a couple more hours before I head down to Bali. I don't know when I'm going to be able to upload this, so things are going to be late this week, but as I get onto the other side and as I get a good connection, I'll be back on board. I'll be back meeting interesting women from around the world and hopefully within Bali as well, interviewing them and bringing them to her conversations. So thank you for listening wherever you are. If you want to find me on Facebook, it's Carol Mae Whittick. The website is carolmaewhittick.com, and Instagram and Twitter is Kazmic, so Cazmick. And feel free to subscribe and share and tell everyone about her conversations. And I'm going to be doing a little bit more on Instagram as well. Bali's a very Instagrammable place, so I'm going to take advantage of my surroundings and utilise social media a little bit more. So have a great week, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.